Greetings Retro Gamers, I'm Richard Evans, aka Retro Rich, Richard31337 on Twitter, and this is a video about the Neo Geo MVS that I own. I've had a lot of questions about this. It does seem to get quite a lot of interest, and rightly so, because it's an amazing cabinet. It is a restoration project. I've done quite a lot of it already, and I haven't documented it on video because I'm quite new to YouTube, but I have got a lot of photographs which I've been tweeting on Twitter, and what I'm going to do tonight is go through the things that I've already done and tell you about those things and how I resolved some of them, the issues, and I'm also going to show you inside the cabinet as well, because that's something that when I was looking around for information on it before I bought it, I couldn't find any videos of the inside, and I was quite interested in seeing what was inside these things. So, you know, if you've never seen before, you might find it interesting. Let's hope. So, let's have a look. Oh, before we do that, I did service, clean an Androgynos cart in my last video. That's it playing there, as you can see. There's my poor score. Literally only played it once. But yeah, it does play. I'm leaving it to run. I just want to see how it gets on, because Daz did ask me to test it. So I'm going to leave it in the cabinet there and play with that for a while. I might do a video on that at some point, just because I've never done a video on that particular game. But anyway, that's for an upcoming video. Let's move on to this. So let's have a look at the cabinet first. So right at the top here, we've got the stereo sound and mini marquees, which are lit by EL panels. That's electroluminescence panels. This cabinet was made by Electrocoin in the UK. There's many different Neo Geos, and this is the Neo Geo Arcade is what it's called, and it's a 6-slot MVS system, so it's the biggest one that they did. And on this side you can see the graphics. It's also got a really unusual profile, which I'll try and show you in a minute from the other side. In fact, let's try and do that now, because it's quite an unusual shape. It's like a... oh, it's not going very well. There you go. As you can see, quite an unusual shape. It's kind of like a big bottle opener. I'm sure they wouldn't like me saying that, Electrocoin, but yeah, it's a really unusual profile. It's got some nice graphics on it, and there's a step at the bottom there. Let's have a look at some of the things it's got. So, as I said, it's got electroluminescence panels there that light up. Let's just see if I can turn the light off on the... no, I can't. Okay, well, let's not worry about that. There's a screen, 19-inch. That's a Hantarex monitor. Standard Neo Geo controls. You can see my control panel's a little bit worse for wear, but I'll talk to you about that in a little bit as well. Here we've got memory card slot, which means that you can take a memory card into the arcade and save your game progress. It doesn't save high scores, it saves game progress, and then you can take it home and plug it into your AES, that's Advanced Entertainment System, and that's the home version of the Neo Geo, and that will allow you to take those that's the game progress back and play at home, and vice versa. So this is an MVS, I probably should have said at the beginning, is a multi-video system, as it says there. This is the arcade version. Let's just see what happens when we press this button here. So you've got a game select button. When we press this, the marquee will change. So we're on to Metal Slug X, and all of the games instantly change as we press it. Then we're on to Puzzle Bobble 2. They're all running basically at the same time, and it just switches between them. There's a lot of logic on the board. One whole board pretty much is taken up with that, and it's enormous. When I show you the PCBs, they are big, and one just switches the games in and out, so they're all running simultaneously, and it switches every single pin. There's Blazing Star. Oh, Pulse, yeah, Blazing Star, sorry. And then we've got Garrow, Mark of the Wolves, and Polestar. There we go. Okay, so let's have a look at some of the things that you can do with it. Right, so I've got a universe BIOS. So if I hold down A, B and C and start, it will stop the game and give me a menu. Let's do a soft reboot. If I press this, and then the next option is I hold down B, C and D, it will bring me into the universe BIOS. And that is handy because you can go through hardware tests, you can set up, you can see what the hard dip switches are set to. You can set up the soft dips, which is for the cabinet, for each game in turn. If we have a look at Polestar, for example, we see that it's got 3 players allowed, no continues allowed. I've set these up because I used it for Twin Galaxies. So these are the Twin Galaxies settings. Demo sound, how to play, that's not really important, but they are set that way. Difficulty is level 4, which is the default. Credit indicator with, which shows the credits on the screen, which is important. That's the default, but the non-default is the level indicator. So that shows you that it says level 4 and it's playing on level 4. There's also a 1-up timing, tells you when you get another life. That's all Twin Galaxies settings. Same as, look at Blazing Star there. That's got Twin Galaxies settings also. You can also look at bookkeeping, and that will show you how many plays you've had. So let's look at Metal Slug. No, let's not. Let's look at Blazing Star, because I have played that quite a bit. So there you go. It shows you how often I've played it. I haven't played it since December. Shocking. Look how long I played it for. Average time as well. There you go. So I played it in December 146 times. Ooh. Could have been learning to play it quite a lot then. Anyway, let's go back out. Not worry about that. There's a calendar, obviously it shows you the date, the time. Is that correct? I think it's close enough. Actually, it's the wrong date, isn't it? No, it isn't. It's the correct date. Let's go out of that. We can also go into, if I hold down A, B and C now, the universe BIOS settings. So that was the actual MVS BIOS, I should have said. And this allows you to set the region and also whether it's the arcade or the AES version of the cartridge, because all of the cartridges have the same, both games in them, which is quite interesting. So if you've got a universe BIOS, you can actually play the home version of the game, the AES version, and you can also pick Europe, US, and Japanese for the region. So you can get language changes. Some of the games had, I think the Japanese games, some of the fighters had more violence in some cases, although you can turn the violence on separately. They also had, in the Japanese games, some of you will know what I mean here, some of the characters had more bounce. The female characters particularly had more bounce in the Japanese versions of some games. So maybe look that up if you don't know what I'm talking about. General BIOS settings. There you go. Anyway, so you can also play all of the sounds from the game. So you can actually go into a cartridge, and this is useful because on the front here, something I didn't mention is there are headphone sockets. There's also audio outs on the board, so you can actually take a feed straight out and record the music and sound effects from the games, which is quite cool. Anyway, let's get out of that. Let it boot up. Now I've got my coin mechanism set to 10p and it is active. There is no free play on this machine. So we can coin it up and then the sound will come on. I've got the demo sound switched off, so it's only when you put a coin in that you actually get sounds coming out of it. So what should we do? Let's have a look at the inside. That's probably the next thing to do, isn't it? So down here, undo this key, take the front off, and here we go. That's the inside of the 6-slot MVS. Now normally when you take the front door off, this switch will come out and it will basically switch the machine off because that's a safety interlock. Now I've disabled that because it's frustrating. I've actually just screwed it back a little bit further. You can see those screw holes there. Just moved it back a bit further, but it does allow me to switch it off without having to unplug it. So here we go, let's switch it off. That's now off. So we'll go through the things that I've actually fixed and we'll do them in the order that I did them. So the first thing is that I only have the keys for this at the front, and the reason the key's in there because you cannot take it out, because it's not actually locked, it's open. Because there's something wrong with the lock. I think the keeper is a little bit too long and it doesn't quite fit with the display. So actually I can take the front bezel cover out right now if I need to. I wouldn't do that obviously while it's on, and I'm certainly not going to reach around the back of the CRT. Anyway, I don't know what's around there. I can't get into the back of the cabinet because the locks need drilling out. I never actually got around to doing that at this stage. That's something to do in the future. But what I did do was I picked, originally tried to pick this lock, and in the end broke it because I just wanted to get in to here. And in there I found about £2 worth of coins. And at the moment there's just some 10p's in there. So this is where all of the coins get collected when they fall through. And you coin it up, and let's have a look. This is quite interesting. This is how many plays or how many coins have been counted going through here, and we have 114,649 plays. That's how many plays this machine has had, or how many coins have gone through. You also got some buttons here. We've got a service button and a test switch. Now actually you can switch the test switch and it will go straight into the MVS BIOS, but we don't need to do that because I can use the Universe BIOS menu to do that. Let's look at the power supply. Now what's really nice is these all slide out. It's a little bit messy with the wires there, but that's just because there's some slack. That's not dangerous or anything. They're all completely crimped up. I'm not going to mess around with that power supply too much because it has been on, and although I know that it's got a resistor across to discharge it, because there's a large cap in there which will give you a massive mains voltage belt if you started taking the cover off, but I personally know that there's a resistor in that. It's been modified. I didn't do the modification, but I did service this power supply. So back to the next things I did, I actually fixed this power supply, which is a Hantarex US 300, which is the original that it should have been in this cab, because when I got it, it had a US 250, and that doesn't have the output for the EL panels display at the top. So actually that never would have worked, even though it needed fixing anyway. What I have done is I've serviced the fan, completely serviced it, all clean. It's all very reasonably quiet now. I've checked the voltage output, made sure, because you can adjust the voltage. I've checked that. I've got everything working. Works really well. It's rock solid. Really good power supplies. Now people moan about these power supplies, but actually they have some common faults, and once they're fixed, they work just fine. So people complain about them, but they just need a bit of TLC really. I've discovered this from talking to other people, obviously. It's really helpful, the advice that you can get from other collectors and people that are interested in this stuff. Now, here we go. Let's have a look at the main board. Now this again all comes out on rails, which is quite nice. And you can see there's the 6 cartridges. Slot 1 is at the front, moving back to slot 6. These are all original games, as I've said in other videos. I have all original games. I don't have full kits, but all my cartridges and the boards inside are 100% original. So now you're going to notice that this does not look like a standard MVS cover, and that's because I've covered it. It came with some horrible plastic stuff on it. And it was actually covering the edge of the board there, and it was getting quite hot, to be honest with you. It looked horrible. So although I've not done the best job, I've actually covered it with a vinyl. I tried to get most of the glue off. Very difficult. I may redo it, but what I have done is also labelled up everything. So you can see here, this is where the volume controls are. You've got the volume controls for the headphones, and that's headphones there, and speaker. This is actually an output to the headphones. So there's the headphone sockets up here. We've got the standard jammer wiring, or it's not quite standard, it is MVS jammer wiring, so it has got stereo sound off here. You've also got 2 connections here for a memory card, and at the back there's EL panels, and there's also the audio going to the speakers as well. So that's all at the back. As you can see, I've labelled the slots up the side. There's some other connectors and things for connecting serially to it, but you don't need to do any of that stuff. I haven't gone to the kit to do it anyway. So what other things have I done on here? Right, well actually the BIOS battery in this. This was it was going, and if they go, they can also. It was low voltage, but it was also and losing settings, but it was also starting to leak. Now that's not good because it can damage the PCB. The battery is actually on the top of the board, the underside board. So I don't know whether we're going to be able to see my modification, but what I did was I replaced it with a battery from Maplin. Can we see that? Yeah, we can. You see it there in the back? That battery, I've actually put it under the board, so even if it were to go bad, it would leak onto the wood and not onto the PCB, so I'm quite happy with that modification. And that's it there. You can get that from Maplin. I think it's about £5. There's a little bit of messing around to do it, but it's in there, and it's much better than leaving the original in there. You can't get the originals anymore. I should have said that. You can't get those. So or anything that will fit between the boards. There's too many pins coming down from the chips above. So if you try and replace them on the 6-slot machine, the PCB above, the pins coming down from the chips will actually potentially puncture the battery, and you don't want that either. So what else have I done? The left joystick. And when I got it, it was sticking. It was sticking over to the right and at the bottom, and it was clicking and it was getting stuck. Very difficult to play. So what I did was I just did a quick service on it, and I managed to get that working again, no problems. But really the whole control panel does actually need all the buttons cleaning. It's got leaf switches, really nice. They seem to work okay. I did give them a quick John's arcade treatment, actually, funnily enough. I used paper and put it between the leaf switches, pressed the buttons and pulled the paper out, and basically I've got a lot of the oxidization off the surface of the leaf switches, and they then worked perfectly. So nice tip there, thanks John. What else? So I replaced the power supply, yeah. Blast battery, yeah, we talked about that. Now, I also had a really horrible audio problem. Let's put this back in. Really, really nasty. It sounded, if I tried to turn it up, it just made a horrible, horrible noise, like it was distorting. And even at low volume, it would suddenly go very loud. Now, I'd heard about this. I'd heard about capping audio on these machines, so I bought some cap kits from America. I capped the audio, so I replaced all the electrolytic capacitors. They go bad. It happens very common. It's a very common fault with a lot of arcade boards. You replace the electrolytic capacitors because they dry out and they stop working. I did that, and I still had the problem. Would you believe? It sounded slightly better actually in certain situations, but still couldn't get it to work. I tried cleaning everything. I cleaned the volume sliders, and then I realised that actually there were still some electrolytic caps on the board which hadn't been replaced as part of the cap kit. So I thought, well, why not, try and replace those as well. They're on the power amp. So I tried that, and I had several cap kits because they were cheap, but the postage was expensive from America, so I bought 3 cap kits. And I used the caps from one of the others, and lo and behold, it sounds perfect now. It really does. It sounds really good. I've got a friend who works with audio. He's really interested in this stuff, so he's actually suggested some modifications that will actually improve the audio, and I may do those at some point. So that's that. Now, what else? Let's have a look at the... Let's put the front on for a minute. Switch it on. I'll show you. Go into the MVS BIOS. We can go into test mode, hardware test, and I can show you the EL panels. There we go. Right, so that's now set. So you can see EL 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's showing you it's switching between them. It's just switching left to right. Now, these EL panels, I've got an original one here. This is an original EL panel from an MVS. You can't get these unless you buy new old stock, and even then they may not work because depending on how they've been stored, they can get liquid inside them or moisture inside, and then they stop working. They're capacitive. I'm not sure of the exact technology. I have worked with some of this stuff in the past. All I know is that you don't want to mess with this when it's switched on because there's very, very high voltages in there, and it will hurt you if you touch anything electrical while it's running. So that's the old one. Only one of them was even slightly working when I got it. As you can see now, they're very, very bright, which is great. So how did I get that working? Well, I contacted several companies, and one of them, Shorelight, was really helpful. So there's a guy there called Matt, who actually is on Twitter, and he's at Review Retro Game, and he's also got retrogamereviews.co.uk as his own site, but he works for Shorelight, and Shorelight, he helped basically design these from scratch for this cab. So let's have a look at those. I should also mention that I did have to look at the PCB that runs the EL, and that did seem to be working. One of the reasons it wasn't working at all was because it wasn't plugged in, and it wasn't plugged in because the power supply that came with it didn't have the connector. You discover all these things as time goes on. Anyway, let's have a look under here. So you'll see that it's got a plastic cover over it, and that behind the plastic cover you can see that there are panels. So I wonder if we can, don't know if this is going to be possible, see if I can take one of the panels out. Let's take the mini marquee out, Gary Mark of the Wolves. You can see it lighting up there when it comes round. Now, one of the things about these panels is that they were never going to be exactly connected the same way. So what I've had to do is they came with leads on them, and the first one, this one here, is actually the prototype that was sent, and that actually had quite thick wires on it, and I've taken those off. But the later ones, they didn't supply them with the wires, and they just left me little tabs, so they were much easier. But as you can see, I've used electrical tape to tape down around and get them in exactly the right place. But overall, I'm very happy with it, and I would definitely buy them again, and I would certainly recommend, now that, I mean, Shorelight have the patent to make these, so I'm intending to do something specifically about these with a more professional quality video and photographs for them, so that they can use that, and I'm going to post it on forums for them. I'm sure there's other people with MVSs that would like these. Right, so talked about the EL panels. Right, now what is left to do on the cabinet? Let's see if we can get out of this. I think the only way to get out of it is to reset it. Well, we can do that in a minute. So, things that are still remaining to do. Well, as you can see, the control panel overlay is not great. Now, it's almost impossible. In fact, I don't even think it is possible to get an original control panel. I've seen machines with much nicer ones. I didn't really think about that at the time. I was very happy with, I bought this off a guy called Tom. He's a really nice guy. We're friends now since buying it. He's really great guy. He's actually King Arthur on Twitter, so he sold me this machine. I know you can get better ones, but this one here, the machine was good, so I took it. Now, he did supply a control panel that he'd bought, a control panel overlay he bought from Muddy Music. Now, he's done loads of control panels for these machines, which is great. He does graphics, but the only thing is that his, I don't know if you can see this, but there's no pattern on his. It's just red. It fades, but there's no dots, and there's no dots here either. It's just blue fade. So it's never going to look quite the same, and that kind of, I was thinking, shall I replace it or not? So what I did, I've got a friend who's he's an art director, a design agency that I used to work at. So I contacted him, and he said, yeah, if you can get the original artwork, I could change that. It's very easy. So I asked Muddy, and basically he said, yeah, no problem. So he sent me the original artwork that he designed. I've had my friend change it, and it's very close to being complete, at which point I'll get some vinyls done, and I'm going to send the updated artwork back to Muddy Music, and then he will be able to sell the updated version, so he gets something out of it and I get something out of it. So I'm going to end up with something that looks very much like this, which will be fantastic. It even has the fade on the orange here, and the dots, I don't know if you can see there, the dots. That wasn't on the reproduction one either. So all of that should look much better. What else? While I've got that panel off, because this is going to be quite a bit of work, it's a really big, heavy piece of metal, this control panel, I should take the whole thing off and clean that up. and I can take all of the buttons and switches off there, all the joysticks, and I'm going to clean every single one and get it working really nicely. I'm also going to do all the metalwork. Now, there's a lot of this is rusted. It's where it's been at some point in its life stored in somewhere damp, and you know that's very common with these machines. There's also here, this is coming off across here. We've got the same sort of problem. You can see there. So I'm intending to take all of these bits of metalwork off, rub them down, and then I'm going to use Hammerite and get them looking, you know, good as new. So that's part of the metalwork restore. I've got to replace every single lock, because even the locks that do work don't fit properly. So this doesn't fit properly. It's locked, but I'm not happy with that. So I need to replace that. Also, the monitor, when I switch the machine on, doesn't degauss. And in fact, you can see at the bottom corner there, it does come and go, but there, that is needing degaussing, because that's got magnetic interference on problems there in the corner. It's magnetized. Now, I read up on this, and this monitor, the chassis, it does have a fuse in the degaussing circuit. So I think that fuse may have gone. That's the first thing to check. The degaussing circuit is very simple, so it could be that there's a component gone on there as well, which I can look into, but I'm really hoping that once I get in there, it might just be the fuse, which would be fantastic. So I can just change that. Who knows? I could be lucky. I've been lucky with other things. What else? Oh yeah, we've got the step at the bottom there is needing a bit of love. It's the metal's coming up. It's not very safe, so I need to get that sorted out. I intend to fix the original US 250 PSU as well, which I haven't got around to yet, but you know that's got problems. And because that was originally, it was switching off and it was making a horrible noise when it did it as well. The power supply was collapsing. Let's give this a reset. And finally, the memory card slot. Now, I don't know if you can see it there, but the memory card slot there, maybe if I come back a bit, see the pins are bent in the memory card slot. So that also needs doing. I'm not sure how this video is going to come out, if I'm honest with you. I think it's very difficult to get a decent close-up with this camera that I'm using, which is an iPhone 6S. It's quite difficult when you're, trying to do stuff with your hand there in view. I'm not used to this, so I don't know how this is going to come out. I'm going to play it back in a bit and see. But anyway, I hope you may have found this interesting. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should probably do. Maybe if I just put a coin in. So we coin up Blazing Star. Let's give it a start. As you can see, audio. Got it set up quite loud. It's always good to have it loud. So my favourite ship is this one. So if you've ever seen my high score video, you'll know that I use this one. Yeah, there we go. You can see it's Blazing Star. It's got some great sound on this machine now. It's very difficult to tell with this mic, but I can assure you it does sound good. But let's turn that off. Just reset that. There we go, SNK forever. Anyway, as I said, I'm Retro Rich on Twitter, Richard31337. Please, comment on this video, subscribe to my channel, send me, come and follow me on Twitter, and just, if you've got any other questions about this that you'd like to know based on this video, please just send me comments or tweets, and I'll be happy to do a future video or fill in the gaps. Ta-ta for now.